Today, I'm inside one of my investment properties. Now, this property is empty, and that's because a couple of weeks ago, I gave the tenants that lived here an ultimatum. That was to come up with $1,000, which was a small fraction of the total money that they owed me. And if they could not come up with that money, then I would have to kick them out. Unfortunately, they couldn't pay, and now the house is empty. And so today, I'm going to be talking about what caused them to fall behind, the mistakes that I made throughout their 2 years of tenancy, and what things I'm going to do different moving forward to make sure that I don't fall into the same situation again. To start off, I ran into this family towards the end of 2022. For the first 4 to 5 months, they made all their payments on time and everything was fine. Now what happened after that was that they started falling behind. They started making their payments in fragments, which I was fine with, because it turned out that what was initially a family of 4 was now about to be a family of 5. I never really went after them. I don't even think I really went after them much until the end of their tenancy. So maybe after the last couple of months, that's kind of when I started asking a lot more questions. But what I have in all my leases is I have a 10-day grace period. I give everybody a 10-day grace period. I don't know how other corporations do it or big corporate apartment complexes. For me personally, I think 10 days is good because I have all my properties on a loan and the bank gives me a 15-day grace period. So I figured I might as well extend that over to my tenants. At one point, I used to give them a 15-day grace period, but then that kind of backfired when the person ended up paying right at the 15 days. And I ended up paying that mortgage late because I was basically waiting for them to pay so then I could carry that over to the bank. So after that, I readjusted all of my leases and I gave everybody 10-day periods. So I never really went after them, and they were always constantly paying late after maybe about the second year that we signed the lease, because we did renew the lease for a second year. Now they didn't finish the second year because I ended up having to kick them out during the last month of that second lease. They wanted to renew, but they were in no position to renew. So we ended up working something out, and ultimately everything ended on friendly terms. We didn't have to go through the courts. We worked out a payment schedule. Everything's fine. By the time that we renewed their second lease, they were all caught up, and by that point they were still making fragmented payments, but they would fall behind and then they would catch up, then they would fall behind and then they would catch up again. And that was fine. Again, I wasn't bothered by it, and ultimately I never really charged them any late fees because I don't really care for the late fees. The only time I actually charge late fees is if I don't like the tenant, if they give me a headache, or if they just violate so much of the lease that I just get to the point that by the time that they move out, I basically start charging them every little thing on the deposit, and I will force that lease like it's law. It becomes law. Everything that you violated on that lease, I start charging for. But that's only if I really can't stand the tenant, and that has only ever happened once, just one time. So I've had a total of about maybe 10 or 11 tenants, 12 tenants, and I've only ever charged somebody for the late fees. I've only ever kept all of the deposits. I've only ever done that once, and that was because they pretty much just try to take advantage of my generosity. So once they moved out, I basically outlined everything that was on the lease, and I charged everything that the lease said that I would charge. Now, I didn't make anything up. All of this was true. It's not like I was being petty, so I was just making up charges. I took pictures of everything. I documented everything, and ultimately, once they moved out and I gave them their statement, they actually ended up owing me it was close to $1,000. But I told them, hey, I won't go after you. Live your life. That's fine. We're good. However, for the tenants in this property, I actually like them. They never really bothered me much, and I never really bothered them much. So it was a mutual understanding. The only times that they ever called me was when they had a serious issue. I think there was a plumbing issue twice there was a plumbing issue, and I got somebody out here to fix it, and everything was fine. But it turned out that when I went to ask them what was going on, because the lease was about to come to an end in about a couple of months, or maybe it was about 3 months. Yeah, we had this conversation a few months ago because they were really falling behind. And they said that their hours were dramatically cut, so there wasn't a lot of work available. And I completely get that because I actually had a similar issue with another tenant. So 2 of my tenants ended up leaving around the same time. because of the same thing. It was just economy reasons. And I get it that things are hard right now, right? So I wasn't trying to kick somebody while they were down. So I actually gave them a payment schedule, and I told them if they make all of those payments that I would waive the late fee. And also I deferred the payments until the end of the year. So I gave them almost 2 months to try and get themselves situated, try to get their life together, and then they could start making the payments. And the payments were spread over several years, which means they're really not paying a whole lot monthly, but I did tell them that they could pay it off whenever. So to make this long story short, I had tenants, they paid for the first 4 to 5 months. After that, they started making fragmented payments. They started falling behind. Eventually, they fell so far behind that we said it was better for both parties if we just went our separate ways. We were able to keep it private. They didn't give me a hard time when I asked them to leave. And likewise, I didn't really give them that much of a hard time because I offered them payment plans and we kept things private. So the court didn't have to get involved. Everything's private. Everything will be off their record. Their credit score will not be affected. Ultimately, I'll get my money in a few years. It's a win-win. I don't need the money now, but as long as I get paid, I'll be fine. Now, throughout their tenancy, there were mistakes that I think I made or things that I could have probably worked on that I do plan on working on with the next tenants that I get in this property. And some of those things, oh, there's a lizard there. Sorry. So some of those things include not being so laid back. I think when it comes to this whole landlording stuff, I tend to be a little bit more laid back, and I really don't start going after the tenants. I don't start hassling them until they end up falling more than a month behind. The limit that I had, the threshold that I had before I say that I'm gonna end up kicking somebody out is always 2 months. And now with this experience, I've learned that 2 months can actually turn to 3 or 4 months because it's about to be the end of the month. I gotta cover this mortgage, and by the time that I end up getting this place fixed and rent it out again, it might be 3 or 4 months. So with that said, now the plan is whenever somebody is not able to make a payment, not so much that I want to hassle them, but after they go past the 10-day grace period, I should probably check up on them. That's really what I plan on doing from this point forward. Really, once they fall 2 weeks behind, once I see that it's been 2 weeks since the due payment, that's probably when I will start trying to reach out to them, make sure that everything's fine, and I don't want it to get past more than a month. So now my threshold is going to go from 2 months down to 1 month. Once they are 1 month behind, that's when I'll probably start with writing the first notice to make sure that they're able to pay or at least pay something. But I never want my tenants to fall more than 1 month behind. That's going to be the new threshold. After 1 month, first notice to make sure that they can pay something, anything, and we'll go from there. There really isn't a whole lot of lessons that I learned here. There's a possibility that I might learn about 5 or 6 more lessons if this ultimately does not work out. But for the meantime, the only thing that I'm going to adjust is how often I reach out to the tenants, because ultimately I do have to be a little bit more hands-on, because if you're not, then you could end up in a disaster like this. And I think some people, I know that some people, if you don't reach out to them and let them know that you're aware of the situation, then they might try and take advantage through no fault of their own, but they might try to see how far they can stretch you before you break. So that's pretty much what I have for this situation, because ultimately these tenants, they were good people. I don't have anything negative to say about them. And the property is in not that bad of a shape, although it is really dirty. Honestly, I think they probably had pets in this house. That's the only way that I could justify this. I think they had pets in the house, even though they were not supposed to. But another thing that I did learn is instead of saying that no pets are allowed, I'm just going to allow pets, because I think that's just part of the game. And if I at least know that they have pets, if I allow them to have pets and then I know that they have pets, then I won't be surprised when I walk in and see what I'm seeing now. And I have other reasons for believing why they have pets, but I'm not going to go after them for that. I'm not going to charge anything extra for that. Again, I don't want to kick someone while they're down, especially when they're a family of 5. I do wish these people the best. And hopefully they get everything situated, and then now it's just up to me to get this place fixed and rent it out to the next people and just move on from here.